The final leg of Tour Series has Jefferson and Swiss interviewing Gannon Buhr, the 25th USDGC, more historic courses, how in the fuck did we end up at a White Sox player's crib, the dgpt championship, the craziest introduction to the sport we have ever heard, and so much more. This is a story of an uncle and his nephew who put their lives on hold to follow their dreams in the Pro Disc Golf Tour while living in a 2011 town and country for 3 months. It's Swiss Cheese, the one with all the holes in his game. Alongside me, the one who doesn't, Jefferson, and we're with the disc golf world. In this series, we will chronicle the different dgpt stops, the insane courses we were able to throw, food, fans, and pros we encountered, the beauty we witnessed, and all the hilarious stories that only tour life can bring. The return from W.R. Jackson, though exhausted from the quick turnaround, it gave the two of us the needed boost heading into our first USDGC. As fun as these stories might be, with all that we experienced on top of the work we are putting in for the channel, we are on literal fumes, running on nerd nugs, goldfish, and cookout shakes. It also helped that Jefferson locked in a Gannon Buhr interview for that upcoming Friday, so the ride was full of brainstorming ideas. Made it to Rock Hill, got cleaned up at the saddest Planet Fitness shower we had on tour. An actual line for a shower that trickled out with the same pressure of an 80-year-old pissing and probably about as warm. Grabbed some essentials, rolled into the parking lot of Cracker Barrel, which also had us come to the quick realization everyone is there. Shared the lot with Gavin Babcock, Allie Smith, Luke Sampson, and Maria Oliva. And we're right next to the hotel that had even more pros. The empty lots with grass surrounding the restaurant and hotel were peppered with baskets where a number of pros would be practicing throughout our stay. It wasn't just there. Pros and disc golf is literally everywhere during USDGC. Had breakfast one morning when who walks in looking like Team Iceland from Mighty Ducks 2, Bavino Makala, and 6 other European pros. Any course that we hit in the area, a pro would always be practicing or getting around it. But one of our best encounters was when we were just sitting on pull-out chairs in the back parking lot of a Cracker Barrel, relaxing with some beers the night before Gannon's interview while the restaurant finishes their dinner rush. When in pulls an old Tahoe where the driver manually rolls down the window, yells out, "Hey mate," in a New Zealand accent and asks if we're sleeping there. Pulls in with another truck following. That was when we met and drank with Ali, a 21-year-old New Zealand disc golfer / ski instructor on the road hitting the U.S. and courses. Along with the not-so-put-together 64-year-old life coach / former Ironman competitor who was hell-bent on rocking a ponytail, competing on the Masters Tour after only playing for less than a year. Oh, and also being Cat Merch's life coach, but not in a creepy way. His words, not mine.
But he did give me a glitch, so that was pretty cool. Ollie's a dog, though.
The two met on Winthrop Gold watching practice rounds, and despite that sounding as creepy as wanting to be Cat Merch's life coach, we began to throw back a few. Some hours later, us half in the bag, we realized putting and partying themselves was the GOAT, Ken Climo, Greg Barsby, Philo, Matty O, Casey White, and others. Listen, I know you guys are hoping for some epic story, but some things just need to remain off the record, or at the very least, not over the fucking internet. That, or we froze by the greatness surrounding us. Woke up, had a strong coffee, and made our way to Winthrop University for Jefferson to throw the distance competition. A performance that also is better left unsaid. Stayed to watch Dave Wiggins bomb, a must-watch if you ever have the opportunity. As impressive as that might have been, Eliezer's little sisters ripping perfect form 360 drives into the practice net was just as jaw-dropping.
Being at Winthrop this early meant that once the course started to die down, Ollie would convince me to throw on the course. We did have being young and dumb on our side, which did pay off when Ollie was waist deep in the water looking for his disc on hole 5. We might have had the golf cart bros that looked like Stingray from Cobra Kai threaten to ban us from Winthrop, but good thing remembering a fake name does you no good. Oh, and Ollie didn't get the disc back. We did get to play hole 7 with Connor O'Reilly, which was pretty cool, but not sure who gave him permission to throw my discs.
Met up with Gannon later in the spot he scoped out himself for the interview. With our humorous style and Gannon's goofy at times personality, I was not prepared for just how technical the interview turned. But with his bright responses to some questions, it just led us into that direction. I walked away more of a fan after the time spent. My favorite part, though, was how a quick, off-the-record question while the mic was on turned out to be what I felt was the best part of the interview. All with his permission, of course. Couldn't wait for the tournament to begin, and for me, it was by far one of the best tournaments I've ever attended, though it didn't start off that way. Day one was quiet and didn't have many people in attendance. With the prestige and history of this property, you felt pressure to respect it. It felt stuffy compared to MVP. People weren't even following cards on the course, instead sticking to the walkways. Yes, it was the weekday, but this was a 25th anniversary and a destination stop. By the weekend, though, the atmosphere and party filled the walkways. It was packed, but never felt too confining. At times, there were hundreds of people following cards. The vendor village was the largest I've ever seen, including the Guardian Angel stand who gave us some swag and was part of the team doing live paintings. Also got a disc dyed by a fan. Everyone who is anyone in disc golf was in attendance. The stop also had the best and most food options at any stop I've ever been. And a mini course. You simply have to go if you can. It's worth it to just see how small that Mando Gap on 7 really is, the island on 17, and the best disc golfers in the world. Was on the tee of 18 to capture Holland's victory before her tee shot never crossed in bounds. And trust, everyone on the course with a phone was spreading the word live. And I was also there for Klein's insane dismantling of the course on the final day before he pulled back the reins.
Just like every course so far, Swiss and I had to get around in at Winthrop Gold. This would be the first course we had to pay a premium to play though. Damn Innova, take all my money. I've been telling Swiss since I was 16 that this was my #1 dream course, and I can confidently say it wasn't worth the $30. Don't get me wrong, if it was free, I would have loved every second, but I spent less at the lumberyard and had a way better time. After getting done with our round, I noticed a text from a Mr. Dylan Cease, pitcher for the Chicago White Sox and avid disc golfer, telling us to pull up to Georgia for an interview. So without much thought, we were back on the road to Georgia. Not knowing what to expect, we showed up at his local course and waited. Nerves were starting to arise when I got another text. This one, asking if we wanted anything from Duncan. We had a blast with the interview and was even invited to play around. Dylan told us that it was a mid-range course, which was perfect since I didn't bag any at the time. Thankfully for me, Dylan had a buzz in his car that he would actually give to me. Played a round of disc golf, which was refreshing being the first one we didn't have to make a video on. The round finished up, and after learning we were living out of a minivan, he invited us to his house to clean up. It was pretty cool, but the better part was seeing his disc collection, one of the best I've ever seen. I had to make a putt at his home basket, and then we made our way back to the Tour Championship, the final event of the year.
Heading to the championship in the last leg of the trip, it felt a lot like the last week of senior year. We were there physically, but not in the spirit. It was a weird mental space of really not having an idea what to do coming home after 3 months living in a van and following the tour. Excited to see family, my wife, sleep in a bed and not shower in a public gym. But we became feral in a way over those 3 months. The focus was just what tasks needed to be tackled that day, and our future was never beyond the next stop. But this was the last one. Didn't help that there was no one at the event either. The atmosphere was as dull as the overcast weather. Couldn't have been further from what we experienced a few days earlier. Most of our time was spent watching the event in the viewer area, and the stop is mostly remembered by the people we spoke with. We were introduced to how strong the Charlotte people in the disc golf community is. Met an older man who was volunteering. Couldn't stop talking about the course, the community, and the clubs. He even cleared the property along with other volunteers for the championship. He was so proud of the work that they did that his eyes welled up with tears while watching the coverage on screen. Me, not being emotionally supportive, didn't know what to do. But that level of commitment had me feeling silly for only making YouTube videos with teenage humor. We also met Beef Supreme and his posse, who traveled to a tour stop every year. Saw them at Hornets Nest and met them again at the championship, where we chatted even further. Not only did they have the best celebration with Ricky on the final day, but one also had the wildest introduction to the game I've ever heard. He was a police officer who was responding to someone who was having a mental crisis and was suicidal. The officer was able to talk him down and was taking him to a hospital and asked him why he chose a public park. The officer didn't know what disc golf was and didn't realize he was on a course. The man, who was very ill and due to physical pain couldn't throw anymore, felt he couldn't continue and simply wanted to end his life where he was the happiest, on his favorite disc golf hole. After that conversation, the officer bought those cheap-ass Amazon discs and tried the sport. He quickly fell in love with the sport, and this story proves this game will never stop surprising me. The closing of the championship marked the end of the tour. Jefferson and I drove home separately, and if you want to hear my solo ride home where I stopped to throw Harmon Hills, my first experience at a Buc-ee's, and my rankings of the courses and stops we hit, check out my Swiss Cheese channel next Sunday. And guys, that's a wrap for our tour stories. Though this ends our 2023 tour story, the boys in the minivan are heading back on the road for the start of the DGPT season. The entire Texas swing, and as many stops as the channel will allow us.
So make sure to like and subscribe. Also, check out all the other content as we bring you guys along with us on tour with daily recaps, future interviews, upcoming Patreon page that you can check out in the description below, and maybe us at a couple DGPT press conferences, and another future installment of our tour stories.